Yes, a conference to ensure the trade of endangered species is ethical, sustainable and traceable is due to start today in South Africa.
The Convention on the International Trade in Endangered Species, or CITES, regulates the buying and selling of threatened plants and animals, of which there are thought to be more than 12,000 in the world.
African elephants are expected to be at the top of the agenda. 20,000 are killed each year for their tusks.
The pangolin, a scaly mammal that looks a bit like an anteater, is likely to be banned from trade. More than 1 million are thought to have been poached in the last decade.
We are joined now by Niki Rust, Technical Advisor on Wildlife for the World Wildlife Fund UK. Morning to you, Niki.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for coming in. And what concrete decisions can a conference come to that might help the situation on the ground for these animals?
There are many things that they can do. One of the best things that they can do is look at whether or not trade is affecting the wild species. So one of the things that we can do is uplist species. There are 3 different types of categories that species can go in. The first is Appendix 1, which is where there's absolutely no trade, international trade in species. So this is the highest form of protection, for example.
So what is in that, Appendix 1?
So, for example, tigers are in there, and leopards and cheetahs. Then there is Appendix 2, which means that the trade is very tightly controlled, and species in there at the moment are certain types of plant species, for example. There is also the Southern African elephant species. Some of those are in Appendix 2 at the moment as well. Various other species too. And the third appendix is where there's just tight controls for individual countries.
What progress is being made? Because on the face of it, you think conservation is much higher on the agenda. The way people talk about it, how much it's covered. Mm-hmm. Is progress being made? We're looking right now at elephants, for example. Now, that's something that I guess is relatively easy to sell, you know, as a message to people about an endangered species.
Definitely. Well, let's be clear that the trade in ivory, the international trade in ivory, is banned at the moment. There's absolutely no trade at all. So even though some of the elephants are in Appendix 2, which means there's slightly more relaxed trade regulations, actually there's no trade currently in ivory. So there is a discussion at the moment of uplisting the remaining elephant population into Appendix 1, but this won't have any effect on the ivory trade, the legal ivory trade, because there is no legal ivory trade. We can't really do anything legally at CITES to reduce the illegal trade, because of course it's illegal, so laws don't work there.
How is trade affected by the fact that I think I'm right in thinking that ivory from many years ago can still be bought and sold? What do you think about that? Should we just say no trade at all?
Well, WWF do recommend that we don't buy ivory. We don't want to have a trade in ivory. However, there are certain exceptions. So, for example, your great-grandmother may well have a lovely old grand piano with keys made from ivory. This was bought an incredibly long time ago, back when elephants weren't really endangered. So in the UK, whilst most domestic ivory trade is banned, there are a few exceptions, for example, with these antique instruments. This isn't helping to spur on poaching of live elephants in Africa, and so this kind of trade is allowed in the UK at the moment, and WWF feel that this is okay. This isn't contributing to the poaching crisis, so we don't think that a total ban is necessary. We do have an almost exclusively total ban.
Now,
though.
we mentioned the leader in the pangolin. It's actually, I'd never heard of the pangolin before. Maybe that's the point, isn't it?
Well, unfortunately, quite a lot of Asian people have heard of a pangolin. It's a very cute, beautiful creature, quite bizarre looking, but unfortunately there are some people in Asia that feel that its meat is a delicacy and that its very interesting scales can be used for medicine.
So what are you seeking to change in relation to that animal?
So there is a suggestion for it to be uplisted to Appendix 1, which means the greatest control. We have absolutely no international trade, and WWF supports that. We feel that there's a big poaching crisis going on. It's unfortunately got the award of the most heavily traded mammal in the world, so we really support this being uplisted so as an international ban.
Niki.
Thank you very much. Really interesting talking to you this morning. Thank you.
Thanks.